Okay, we'll open it up to your questions.
So you got a new punter. Can you tell us about this punter?
I think he's got a strong leg. Obviously, where he came from, New England, had a interesting preseason. But we look forward to getting him out on the field and getting him to work today and building that relationship that's so important to him with Hausch and Reed and I credit to our scouting staff doing their work and finding Corey.
Sean, before we get to the quarterback, what was interesting about his preseason that we don't?
Well, just not a whole lot of work, so not a whole lot of work. Again, I think, I give credit to our scouting staff and doing their due diligence to be able to locate and target a guy that didn't do a lot on film in the preseason. But we were aware of what he could do and coming out of college and whatnot.
So discuss, if you could, tell us the decision on Nate and what ultimately tipped it in his favor.
Yeah, I mean, Nate has earned the right. I thought his total body of work all the way back from the spring through the summer and fall camp to this point, he has certainly earned the right.
How close was the competition at the end of the day? How hard was that decision to make?
Well, it's always a tough decision, and that's a good thing because those guys were competing at a high level. And I would say we've had a lot of tough decisions, which is a good thing for our roster. Again, credit our scouting staff, Brandon and his staff, for making certainly our roster better than it has been in terms of the competition level. I thought through camp, and you guys were out there, there was high levels of competition at a lot of positions.
A lot of this, and we've talked about this a lot, but a lot of it has been made about Nathan's resiliency and just how he's bounced back from adversity, be it at Tennessee, and now here's his chance again to go from what happened last year as a rookie to be the opening day starter. What does that say about him?
Well, just what you said, John. I think, I believe he's a resilient young man. He's certainly come through some times of adversity throughout his career. Look, he's still a young player. And so, I've been impressed with his mental toughness, his command of the offense, the way he's generated yards and then points in the preseason as well, and the way he's developed to this point. Let's keep in mind he's a young player, but just overall, you go back to your question of you watch him at Tennessee, you watch him at Pitt. But right now he's a Buffalo Bill in terms of his journey, like all of us, and that character trait is a great trait to have in terms of being a resilient young man.
Sean, given the inexperience that both Nathan and Josh have going into this year, the move to trade A.J., is it a concern, A, to have two kids who really haven't played a lot in the NFL, and B, what went into the decision to move A.J. at this time?
Well, I'll start with A.J. A.J., I really appreciate the effort he gave us all the way up to the last second of that fourth preseason game. You don't find that often, and certainly appreciate that. Great young man, great family, and I know he's going to do well in Oakland. With respect to our situation with the young quarterbacks, there's no substitute for experience. That said, we've got two young quarterbacks that we believe in, and they're going to continue to grow. And there's going to be learning along the way, and some good moments hopefully, and there's going to be some growing pains as well. And we understand that.
Can you take us inside the room and how you explained it to these guys individually or together, and what that was like?
Well, I mean, I get where you're coming from on that, Tim. And I explained it to Nate, and then to Josh, and then to our football team. And I've got a heck of a lot of respect for those guys, and I just felt like that was the right way to do it in terms of announcing it to them before it became public. And that's because of the the love and respect I have for those guys.
What was it like to be able to tell Nathan that he'd won the job after, as has been alluded to earlier, what he went through? I'm guessing he went through a lot of dark times, especially immediately after that game in Los Angeles, to be able to say, you won this job.
When you earn things, it makes it certainly gratifying as a coach to be able to reward a young man that has earned it. And to your question, or to your point, he has, he went through some adversity, and John mentioned it not only in last season but also in his college career. Look, we've all been through that, and to me, it's a sign of our football team to some extent, and just in terms of usually if you go through some adversity early in life, you're that much more prepared for it when it comes around later in life, and that to me is becomes a personality or a character trait, and that's good to have.
While they're both young, Nathan obviously has a year advantage of being in the system, in the team for a year. Did the instability or changes in the O-line and the wide receiver position play into your factoring who's maybe more ready to take over this team right now?
Yeah, I'm not going to get into why I made the decision that I made. With all due respect to your question, I get where you're coming from. Really, we're just focused right now on the opponent, and that's Baltimore this week.
Sean, with just the two guys on the roster at quarterback, last year you had Joe Webb, just in case, and it turned out you needed him. Who this year, if something were to happen, who do you have this year who would be the third guy that would have to go in at this point?
When you look across the roster, Logan Thomas has played quarterback. He played it in college, and then after that, we've probably got a couple of things that we would need to work through if we got that far. That we would need to work through, but we'll have another guy ready.
So at this point, no plans to sign a third guy?
Brandon's always looking at different options, so I don't want to rule anything out at this time.
Sean, when it comes to Josh's development, how do you continue him on a track of developing while he's the backup, and will he get enough time to continue growing and continue maturing to that role?
Well, Josh is on schedule. Let me just start there. He's on schedule. I've been very pleased with the way he's developed to this point in time. Listen, you learn a lot from the first game of the regular season, whether you're playing or not playing when it's your first time. So I can just go back to my first time and being a part of the first game in my career, and you learn an awful lot. So, but that being said, I expect that Josh will be ready to go when his number's called, whenever it is called, and that's his focus right now.
Coach, can you tell us what allowed Robert Foster to make the final 53?
Another one of our young players, we've got a number of young players that have showed up and made plays. Is he where he needs to be? No. Is our team where we need to be? No. We all have a lot of work to do, including Robert. So, it's just taking it one day at a time. Right now we're focused on a Monday practice and the Baltimore Ravens, a very good opponent. And it's going to be a hostile environment. We understand that. We respect them, respect their opponent, or our opponent, and certainly have a lot of respect for Coach Harbaugh and his staff as well. So we're going to have a big test this week.
Do you expect anybody being limited during or being held out of practice today?
Ray will not practice, nor will Julian Stanford.
Is there a decision on who's going to start on the opposite side of Trey White yet?
We're still working through that.
Sean, as a coach, how do you guard against Nathan kind of looking over his shoulder, knowing that the number 7 overall pick is sitting there behind him, and you guys have a lot invested in him? Is there anything you do as a coach to make sure Nathan knows he's kind of got the full confidence going forward?
Well, Nate and I have certainly spoken, and I'll leave that conversation between, for the most part, Nate and myself. That being said, we all have a big test this week, so there's no time to look over one's shoulder. Right now we've got to put all of our effort into the Baltimore Ravens.
Sean, over the last several months, when was it, if you think back, that Nathan really took a step forward in his development? Not even as to be the starting quarterback, but just in his development to where you could even think about having his start?
Yeah, I'm not sure that, Joe, that there was one moment. There was a series of moments when you go back and watch the journey to this point. you start in the spring, like I mentioned, the full body of work. You start in the spring, and the way he handled himself, bless you, you go through the early part of summer camp and then the preseason games, and just the full body of work, really, and the way he handled himself. He's a steady young man, and a lot can be said for that.
Have you made a decision on your starting center?
We have. Ryan Groy will start at center. Russell's had a good preseason as well, so feel good about both of those young men.
Hey, Sean, tight end was an interesting position to watch really all summer. You went with Krug and Thomas and Lee over Nick. What tipped the scales in that battle with those guys?
Well, let me first start off with Nick. Nick, what more could I say about Nick? His play stood out and spoke for itself. He was very consistent and dependable, and a tough football player, which I have a lot of respect for Nick and his family. That being said, we've taken a step in a different direction here, and feel confident with the guys that we kept, and certainly Charles, and then Jason, and Kari, and Logan. They all bring a little bit of different skill set to the table, and it's been nice to watch a guy like Jason develop. He's a young man that's busted his tail, being injured a little bit last year, then on our practice squad, and in a developmental role for the most part all of last season, or the better part of the end of last season, and then to see him work over the course of the summer. I've came in a couple times over the summer, and he was, in the indoor working by himself. When that's a great part of a lot of our guys, what happens behind closed doors, just in terms of their work ethic. When maybe nobody's watching or there's cameras aren't on, you guys aren't there. These guys work, and a lot can be said for that.
Coach, I think you referenced it earlier, but so your new punter Corey will be your holder going forward.
Yes.
And then just in your experience, just getting that down, the timing and all of that. I know you've got 6 days to work here. Extra work required there, you think?
No, it's certainly something I'm aware of, Chris. Look, it's part of the relationship between a punter and a kicker that it's got to come along fairly fast at this point in time. So Brandon and I are aware of that, and we'll just continue to monitor how that flows through this week, and we'll go from there.
Sean, you said Josh is on schedule with his development, and that you'd be comfortable when his number is called. What are the next steps in his development that you're looking to see here as we enter the regular season?
Yeah, I'm not really going to get into what Josh has to do next, and with all due respect again to your question, right now, again, we're focused. This is the Buffalo Bills against the Baltimore Ravens, a very good football team, and that's where our focus needs to be.
Coach, Saran Neal looked like he really made a couple of nice jumps the last couple of weeks. Can you kind of just walk us through his development and where you feel his game is at, and how much he can contribute on defense and special teams as well?
Yeah, Saran's made some jumps in terms of his development. Certainly a talented young man. He's gaining his feel for the defense and special teams and how the NFL game works, and that's been fun to watch. Coach Babbage and Saran work together, and he puts in a ton of work off the field, and it's been fun to watch him reap the benefits of that work.
With 2 quarterbacks on your roster and nobody on the practice squad, who runs your scout team offense?
Josh will run the scout team offense.
What do you think the benefit of that could be for him in your experience?
In terms of running the scout team offense, he'll learn just from doing that, because as you guys know, the pace, the tempo picks up during the regular season, including practice. So he'll get a bunch of reps in scout team, and he'll learn and grow, and then the reps he'll get with the other part of practice, he'll continue to develop.
So he still will get some reps?
We'll see. We'll see from time to time. We'll see, and we've got the development period at the end of practice where they'll get some reps as well. All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.